It's time for the Daly Planet Podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daly Planet Podcast, your daily dose of all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly, editor-in-chief of DailyPlanetFilms.com. I'm joined as always by my co-host and co-editor, Matt Freeman. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Scott. I'm excited to talk about, I think my favorite director probably, Quentin Tarantino. How about you?
I'm doing good too. It is 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm ready to talk about Quentin Tarantino. The reason it is 6 o'clock in the morning is because once again we are joined by our friend from England, Michael Grubb.
International correspondent of the Daily Planet. How's everyone doing?
Doing good, Michael. How are you?
Excellent. It's sort of a very bright noon over here. Very comfortable talking at this time.
I'm really happy for you.
Yeah. That's good, because if I fall asleep, then that means you can yell into the microphone and wake me up.
Yeah,
Michael, you're coming back here, right? This is probably the last podcast you're going to be a guest from Europe on.
Yeah, and then I'll be the American correspondent.
Well, that's way less interesting.
You need one of those.
I don't think so.
The Colorado correspondent. No one else lives in Colorado, right?
No, we got one of those already too.
All right. Well, I guess I'm just fucked.
So, as Matt mentioned, we are here to talk about Quentin Tarantino. He said his favorite director. I think he's my second favorite director.
I don't play favorites with my directors.
Okay,
just put that out there.
I'm very happy for you.
I would tell Tarantino that he was a beautiful and unique snowflake, but that he wasn't my favorite, because I love all of my directors equally, except for the ones I don't love equally.
Okay.
Like Scorsese, I think he's overrated.
Okay, we're not. You're gonna get me to fight you, and I'm not. We're not talking about him right now. But
Okay.
that's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
Yeah, I dare you not to keep thinking about that.
Stop derailing the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about Quentin Tarantino. Obviously, the reason we're doing this podcast is because his 8th film, The Hateful Eight, just came out. I did a count last night, and it only counts as 8 films if you call the Kill Bills one movie. So,
Or if you count Death Proof is not a movie.
but it was a movie.
It was like half a movie.
Yeah, but they made a full feature length one.
8.5.
Matt, how do you feel about this?
I don't know. I haven't thought through these complicated
Matt will
issues.
join us in about 20 minutes after he's
Yeah, you'll just go ahead. I'll be right here.
All right. So, what we wanted to do is like we did with Christopher Nolan before. We kind of wanted to spend some time just talking about Tarantino and his entire filmography and try to find out, what his unique voice and style is, if he has one. I mean, he has some unique style points, but
He definitely does. I think of all of the directors I can think of off of the top of my head, given the prompt that we're already thinking about Quentin Tarantino, he's the most unique.
yeah, I think it's cool. I think he has his unique style, but I like that he likes to play in different genres.
Yeah.
And he still retains his style, but I think he captures the genre really well.
He's great because he does a lot of really interesting things with his movies, but he's never in danger of being pretentious, because he's like, a lot of things in his movies are just very like shallow movie, but they become not shallow because he's like playing with them in cool ways.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put out a thesis here at the start that he's a better writer than he is a director, because in terms of directorial style, I'm not sure that he does a lot other than really skillfully kind of mimic things that he's trying to make reference to. But what I really love about Tarantino's movies is his stories, and he writes all of his movies almost entirely. So,
Well, I'll kind of agree with you in some of his recent movies, but I think he is a great director because of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and The Hateful Eight. Because those movies are really well put together. Not just the stories. I mean, Pulp Fiction, the one he's most famous for, right, is famous largely. The most famous thing about it is probably the way he tells the story, which is just like in his nonlinear, like the information that he hides and presents to you at the times that he chooses, which is largely done through the directing. I guess you can say it's also done through the screenplay, but I think the directing is a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, I don't necessarily fully agree with you, Matt. I think he's a really good director too. I think he does mimic style a lot, but he does it like when I think of Tarantino, I think of like the Beatles' White Album, which is the album they set out to basically say we can do every style of music. We're good enough that you give us a style of music and we're going to do it. And I think that's what Tarantino does with his films. And he plays in a style until he gets bored of it and he moves on. And he never really does kind of what you would expect. I think I've read talk about like that he had like if you divide his movies into three trilogies, basically, there's the first two movies of a set, and then the third movie kind of twists on it. Like if you look at Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. And then he followed that up with Jackie Brown. If you look at the two Kill Bills, and then he followed that up with Death Proof, and then you look at what Inglourious Bastards and Django did, and then he followed that up with Hateful Eight, which is you would think sounds on paper very similar to what Django is, but it's completely different. And it's almost a commentary on those two movies before it. But let's go ahead and let's jump into the individual movies, because I think we're all going to have a lot to say about each one of these movies. So let's talk about Reservoir Dogs first. When did you guys see this? Was this your first Tarantino movie? Because we were too young, I think, when these movies first started coming out. So this wasn't his first movie I saw.
I think no, it wasn't his first movie I saw either. And I think Scott, at least you and I saw it for the first time together when we were in university. And we may have seen it soon after we saw Pulp Fiction. Although I may have seen Pulp Fiction in high school. I don't remember. But did the three of us watch Reservoir Dogs together in the dorm?
Seems likely.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I think I watched it very early in college, which would imply that we probably watched it together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I remember really liking it at the time, and I have seen it since, and I still really like it, just because it's so intimate. Like it's all one setting, and you've got all the different characters interacting, and it's just set up really well. They all have their like color code names, which is cool, and also kind of like lets you get to know them because they're just like hidden. They're not real characters yet, and they sort of develop, and you don't know who any of them are, and there's twists, and it's just like it's really minimalist and well done.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible looking at it. Like, I think it's really fun to look at directors' first movies and see the early version of their style, and see how well defined his style was even this early in the movie, or in his career. I mean, like the fact that he starts, like the things that people really know Quentin Tarantino for, the general audience, is really sharp, flowing, fun dialogue, and then a ton of violence. And he started this movie off with that diner scene where they're talking about Madonna's Like a Virgin, and then the whole tipping conversation. And that's like people's first experience in what Tarantino is, and it so perfectly defines his style to me that it's just a lot of people sitting around a table talking pop culture, but in a way that is so interesting and enthralling.
Really, like one of his main tricks is that he humanizes his like characters, no matter how like inhumanly violent, and like in his first movies, especially like criminals, basically, like he shows them as really normal people,
right? And
you're surprised because he sets them up as really normal people, and they're having like these conversations about whether you should tip or not, and you're an asshole if you don't tip, and then they're murdering people, and and it's great.
Yeah, I think that was the really cool part of Reservoir Dogs was that it opens on if you've never seen the movie before, it opens on just people in suits sitting around a diner. There's really no indication of what these people's job are, except for I think one of them threatens to shoot another one of them. And then you cut from that to them slow walking in an alley, badass looking, and then you immediately cut from that to like the post bank heist or the post diamond heist thing where
and he immediately gets into the action because Mr. I don't remember which color is shot
Mr.
and then dragged. Mr. Orange.
Yeah.
And he's being like dragged into the warehouse or whatever the scene is that stays the scene for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. So Matt, what was your overall take on this film? I don't want us to rank Tarantino movies, but
yeah, I mean it's like some of his other movies, in that it could have been like a play, because so much of it, first of all, it opens up on a table and then it moves into a single room, and there are scenes that are not in the warehouse that are flashbacks, but I would almost argue the movie could do without those, although they are a nice flavor to kind of situate you in where you are and explain where these characters came from a bit better. But I really like any for some reason I'm just a sucker for that format where the focus is so, like Michael said, intimate and on the characters that it really could have been a play. And of course it's nice to see some movie magic now and then, but I like a story that's so tight that it could just be a few characters in a room.
Yeah, I love that. I love that too, and that is what The Hateful Eight is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know you haven't seen that, Matt, but if that's what you like, you're gonna love. Because I think, as far as tone, I think The Hateful Eight has a very different tone from this movie, but setup, it's very similar to Reservoir Dogs.
I loved Reservoir Dogs. Was probably my previous favorite Tarantino movie, just because of how like character focused it was and how minimalistic it was. And Reservoir Dogs was that way largely, I think, because Tarantino's limitation of budget, because that was his first movie. He's an independent filmmaker, and he's like, well, I don't have a lot to work with. You know, what can I do with a single set?
Yeah.
And The Hateful Eight, I feel, is kind of like him being like, well, I can use that limitation. I can do whatever I want now, but I'm going to go back to that limitation and do it really well because I now understand filmmaking really well, and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, and I know this is probably different from what y'all, I think his movies have only gotten better as he's gone. I think as he's learned more about the craft. But I do think, talking about his skill as a director, I do really love the direction in this movie. I think that one of the moments that stands out for me is when Mr. Orange is telling the pre-rehearsed story about his interaction with the cops on that drug deal in order to get in with the gang, and it cuts from him practicing the story alone in his room to him performing it for the other cop to him actually telling it real to the gangsters that he's talking to, and like the cuts that it happens, the smooth transition, and how the actor's performance, Tim Roth's performance, changes as he better masters it and gets more into character. I just think it's so well done.
It's really well done. Like that's what Tarantino is the master of, is like sharing information at the right time with the right amount of impact.
Right, and there's been so many imitators of his style, and they I don't think any of them really ever get it. Like the telling of the story out of sequence that he did in both Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, especially, has been copied a lot, but it's never done the way he does it in the way to control how you receive information, and in a way that makes it dramatic and interesting.
There's a scene in The Hateful Eight which doesn't really ruin anything, but he shares an important piece of information in a way that seems like it should disrupt the whole flow of the movie, because the movie hasn't had a narrator, and all of a sudden a narrator comes in, rewinds the movie, and like directly tells you and shows you something that just happened.
Yeah.
And and that works really well, even though it seems like you can't do that. It's breaking all of the rules, but it was like the perfect way to show what he needed to show, and he managed to do it in an interesting way.
Really, especially when the narrator is Quentin Tarantino himself, which it was.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is you didn't get to see the 70 millimeter version, but in the 70 millimeter version there was an intermission, and that narration starts after the end of intermission. So it worked even better there, because it was like, you're coming back for intermission, here's what happened, and then let's set up what's going to happen. I thought that was really cool. And it was almost like I think he said 15 minutes went by since we've seen the characters, and that was exactly how long intermission was. So it was kind of like this cool, you've been gone for 15 minutes, here's what happened in that time.
That's cool.
He just plays with it like that. Like he will sometimes break the fourth wall, but he does it in interesting ways like that.
I want to learn how Tarantino learned how to be the way he is, because Reservoir Dogs is already a great example of this, and it was his first movie. So he's gotten better over his film career, but he was already incredibly good at just intuitively manipulating audience emotion. Well, and that's really what writing is to me, is it, like manipulating emotion, and whatever tools you have at your disposal, you can use those. There's no rules really. And he understands that, and he always has.
Reservoir Dogs is really good. So there's one thing about Tarantino movies that I think I can point out, is that a lot of times with Tarantino, like a lot of directors, like number one thing that you think you want to do is to like immerse your audience in the movie so much that they don't know they're watching a movie. A lot, like Reservoir Dogs actually does that, I think. But a lot of Tarantino movies, you're very aware you're watching a movie, but it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good observation, and I think that ties into the fact that, you know, people get on him for his hyper-violence, but I think he loves showing violence, but he also loves showing that it's clearly fake. Like,
right. It's super fake a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But that, like, and I don't know why that works so well, to be honest. Do you guys have any insight into that? Like, it doesn't seem like it should. Why? Like in Django Unchained, when he shoots the gun at the servant or whatever, or maybe it was the wife, and she just like flies off screen
backwards,
super fakely. And that does make it comedic, but it's not just a throwaway comedic thing. It's like, it's a stylistic choice that is it making the violence more palatable?
I think it's partially that. I think it's if you, the audience, are aware of how fake it is, you're less likely to be disgusted by it. But also I think he recognizes that on some level we all know that we're watching a movie, and therefore like as long as you don't completely break the world, the audience will buy what you're doing. And I think he understands that, and he's not afraid of butting up against that line or bending that just a little bit to get a desired effect. And he's really good at it. The thing about the violence that's interesting, though, is I rewatched this movie a couple weeks ago, and he's gotten a reputation for his violence. But in this movie, I mean, violent stuff happens, but he doesn't, and I don't know if this was, they made him do this, but like when the whole cutting off the cop's ear part, not only does the camera not show that happen, but like if you look at it, the camera kind of runs away from it. Like as it's happening, the camera like abruptly moves up left away. Like it's almost as if he's looking away because it's so disgusting I can't even look at it. And I thought that was really interesting that he chose to do that in that moment, or maybe was made to, I don't know. It shows that, like, I think he very much understands the difference between real violence and fake movie violence. And if it's something that he wants it to be or feel like real violence, he's not as okay with showing it. Which is, I think, why he gets so frustrated when people ask him about, like, the connection between movie violence and people acting violently in real life. Because I think he's like, have you watched my movies? Like, I either make it look really fake or I don't really show it.
Yeah, I have an idea here, which is that the violence looks unrealistic when it's something that would never happen, and it looks realistic when it's something that he wants to make you feel because it's something that does and can happen. So, like, I'm going to use as my examples in Django Unchained, they're pretty, horrifically realistic with all of the violence where they're doing horrible things to the slaves. And then when they choose to become unrealistic is when Django goes and gets revenge on the plantation owners. And the thing about that is that that's not something that ever happened, right? There was never a hero named Django who killed all the plantation owners and blew up their house and rescued his wife. Like, that's the fantastic element of that movie. And the movie sort of cuts from like, this is the real horrible reality of it to this is the revenge fantasy, which reminds me of when they kill Hitler in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of absurd. And like the camera just like shows directly how they just like blow Hitler's head into pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure everyone in the theater is actually laughing at that point. Because it's obviously fake, because Hitler was never gunned down by a bunch of Jewish American soldiers.
That's true. That's a really good point, actually. I think another reason in Django, I realized as you were talking, is just because like it actually would be a super unsettling and not fun movie at all if Django like killed the plantation owners with real violence. You'd be like, oh, this is like a terrible thing to do,
right?
Even though he's been wronged, it's like, oh, I'm not rooting for him at all. He's like, this is terrible.
The movie's kind of like a revisionist history, revenge fantasy almost, and that has to be a moment of triumph. And if you film it realistic and ugly and brutal, it loses that. His violence has to contradict or look different from the actual violence that.
So he really, I mean, in that interpretation, he's actually doing exactly what people say he's doing, which is making violence seem like an okay, like a triumph, right? Because of the way he's shot it in that movie.
But only,
it's like, the revenge is that's really good.
but only in the sense that it's still not real. Like.
It's still not real, but he tricks you into being like, oh yeah, this type of violence is okay because it's justified.
And I actually think that's really interesting when compared to Hateful Eight. And I know we can't get into the details to spoil it for Matt and other people out there, but Hateful Eight is a movie that almost like punishes you for enjoying the violence in Django. Like, it's a movie that says, okay, like, people walked out of Django being like, yeah, that was awesome. He got revenge on those slave owners and solved the problem. And Hateful Eight's a movie that says, no, the problem was definitely not solved. And that whole construct of Django was a lie.
The ending of Hateful Eight is perfect on so many levels, and I wish I could discuss it more with you right now. But I think it does hint that something has been achieved.
I wish I could talk, because I think it's the exact opposite of that. I think it hints that nothing's been accomplished.
Okay, we'll do a special overtime version of the podcast.
All right. Yeah. Right. But we've kind of moved off track, and I think it's easy to do because I think all these movies build off each other. But so I think we all agree that Reservoir Dogs was a really great movie and an incredible start for a guy who really had no technical experience.
And like I said, I think it was actually my favorite before Hateful Eight. So, even though he hadn't perfected a lot of his things yet, I think it was great.
I mean, the amazing part is this was just a guy working in a video store that just loved movies, and he wrote the script and got a chance to make this movie. And the fact that it turned out as well as it did is kind of remarkable. And then he got more money based on that success, and then made Pulp Fiction, which is a movie that lives kind of in the same world as Reservoir Dogs, but does a lot of different stuff. And really,
Pulp Fiction was still an independent movie.
Yeah.
Which is worth pointing out because of how it kind of put indie movies on the map, didn't it? Like, it did so well.
Yeah, it was one of, I think there's like a series of 3 movies that came out around the same time in the early 90s that like brought the indie scene like out. This movie did really well. I think it premiered at Sundance and like killed it there, and like was part of the creation of the entire indie scene. So that definitely can't be understated that he managed to do that with his second film. And this, so what do you guys think about Pulp Fiction? I think it's definitely his most well-known movie. Not his biggest financial success, but Matt, what's your general feeling on this one?
I mean,
Well, obviously, I loved it.
I said Matt.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I'll talk until I'm spoken to.
I'm still waking up. No, it's probably I don't know if it's my favorite or not, but it's definitely the one that I will sort of, if somebody asks me like what Tarantino movie do you want to watch, which obviously happens all the time, I'll say Pulp Fiction. It's got like the perfect mix of tension and being enjoyable, and it's just the right length, and it moves just fast enough. It has all these different characters and all these different storylines, and it has so many satisfying moments. And I think I've always loved this movie, and I've only grown to love it more, especially as I've like read more criticism and commentary on it, where certain things were pointed out to me that I could then be like, oh, that's awesome, I'm going to watch it again with that in mind.
Yeah, this is where I love this movie too, and this is where I kind of agree with your assessment of maybe he's a better writer than he is a director, because I don't think there's a lot of directorial flourish in this movie, but it's so well written that it's just incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd call it my favorite. I think, but it is probably the most rewatchable of his movies. It's the one I've watched the most. Michael, you may talk now.
Okay, talk now. No, I mean, again, it's kind of the pinnacle of his like choosing when to reveal information to you to both like heighten the story and make you appreciate things in earlier scenes that didn't seem important. Like, I mean, the example, like, it starts with Honey Bunny and Rever deciding to rob the diner. Mm-hmm. And what you don't realize is that, like, all the other characters are there at the same time, and it's important to what's going on in their story. And then when you end up getting to that point in their story, you're like, wait a minute, I know it's going to happen. And it just makes all of the storylines going on seem really connected.
Yeah, I look at it, and it makes sense with the title Pulp Fiction. I look at it as just a bunch of little short scene vignettes that he managed to tie together so perfectly.
Right. I mean, it's difficult to describe, like, the plot of Pulp Fiction, really.
Yeah, because, I mean...
pick some individual storyline.
Yeah. But they're, like, each scene, each act, I guess you could say, of the thing is just so well done, and the fact that it manages to tie together is great. I don't know. I think we each probably have our favorite of the mini acts. I still think I like the Mr. Wolf stuff the best. After they accidentally shoot Martin in the head in the car, which is one of I think the most hilarious scenes. Just how it's played, and again, the violence in that looks kind of fake. The way his head just explodes.
Yeah, it's a pretty iconic scene, and I think he does the trick that we talking about earlier of making it seem fake so that it's less horrific.
And I think this movie does a lot of things. It shows, one, that Tarantino is definitely not afraid of putting himself in his movies with that character, and not afraid of making that character say some pretty terrible things, because he actually got in. I mean, he didn't get in trouble, but he pissed a lot of people off with the character he played in this movie, and how he just dropped the N-word like over and over again. This movie is the start of he and Spike Lee's feud with each other, because Spike Lee was not happy with his character spouting off the N-word every 5 seconds.
Are they still at odds? Because I feel like Tarantino's most recent, both of his most recent 2 movies, probably Jackie Brown, like they've been very pro black people.
Yeah, I think they are still feuding. It's a shame too, because they're both probably two of the people doing the best film work as far as representing the current state of black people in the country. And if they would team up to do something, like, can you imagine how good that would be? But no, I think Spike Lee had some bad things to say about the Hateful Eight. which is sad
Really?
because yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But do you guys have like a favorite scene or act or what have you?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. It's not my turn to talk yet.
sorry, Michael. I'll tell you when you can go. I was just gonna say the Butch Bruce Willis plotline because, frankly, because of this YouTube that I watched where it highlighted all this stuff going on in the background of that plotline that allowed me to get a lot more out of it. And I think I'm gonna link that YouTube, but it points out all this subtext about how Butch really wants to be a soldier or like a warrior, or he sees himself as a warrior. And there's all this evidence in the movie, and a lot of it is actually extremely subtle, which actually increases my respect for him as a director. And I just said that I think he's a better writer than a director, but this is one case where having this stuff pointed out to me made me think like, oh wow, this was here and this was affecting me subconsciously, but I didn't see it for what it was. And this makes me think that he's doing this kind of stuff all the time, and I'm similarly not sharp enough to catch it. And so I'm probably underestimating him as a director because he's slipping all this stuff into my subconscious that I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
Like specifically sound effects that are happening as he's running around that are extremely reminiscent of like a battlefield, but they could also just be the background sounds of a city, but they're cleverly chosen to make you feel like he's running through like a war-torn city. It's really interesting to pay attention to.
I think that's what makes him so rewatchable, because he does put stuff like that. I mean, I think that his doing things out of sequence makes this movie really rewatchable, because you can watch it again knowing what's going to happen to these characters or knowing what they're thinking prior to stuff. But stuff like that, I agree. Like now, I've seen this movie so many times, and you just gave me some new information, and now I want to go back and watch those scenes to try to see if I can pick out some of this stuff. But Michael, you were next.
I think, well, I agree with what Matt said. Bruce Willis's character he was definitely the one you were rooting for, right? Like he was the good character. You wanted to get away with stuff. But I think my favorite, which is kind of not really usually my reason for liking things in movies, but Samuel L. Jackson's character, and just like how, I don't know what the right word for him is, but he's such like a pretentious. You use the word pretentious a few times in this podcast, but like he's not like a typical assassin. Like he thinks he's like this intellectual, and he needs to make like his speech, and he's mad when people are interrupting his speech, which is a really cool speech. And he just like, he has this image of himself, which is not the typical image you would think a criminal would have of themselves. And I just found that whole bit really interesting. And his relationship with John Travolta as well. So John Travolta I liked a little bit as well. But I think, yeah, anyway, Samuel L. Jackson's character was the best part for me.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that I like what you said, and I think the movie kind of shows that he's kind of full of shit. Because like I love the part where they're talking about, everyone talks about the whole Royale with cheese part where they're talking about what the quarter pounder is because of the metric system. And then in the very next scene, he tells that to the guys sitting around making small talk.
Yeah.
And he puts it off as if it's his own information.
Yeah.
And he kind of takes credit for it, which I think gets you in the mindset that this guy is kind of just full of it. And you can't really listen to everything he's saying. And I think it builds upon that perfectly when they survive those gunshots, and then he's all, I'm going to be a holy man now, even though he's an assassin. God spared him, spared an assassin.
Samuel L. Jackson is just a delight.
Yeah, and I think this movie is a great way to talk about one of, I think, his best skills as a director is getting performances out of actors that we can't see anywhere else. Like Samuel L. Jackson's a great actor. He's been in a lot of movies, but I don't think anyone pulls a performance out of him like Tarantino does. And he does that the same with other people. I mean, Tarantino's famous for taking people's careers that have kind of died and revitalizing them. I mean, he did it with John Travolta here. He did it with Pam Grier and Jackie Brown.
Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he kind of did it again in Hateful Eight with Jennifer Jason Leigh. She hasn't really done much, and now she's nominated for an Oscar for this thing. So, I mean, he pulls performances out of people that are incredible, and this is a great movie for it because, I mean, this is the first time he's worked with Samuel L. Jackson. He'll obviously work with him again and again and again, but he gets a great performance out of him here.
Yeah, and Samuel L. Jackson kind of reminds me, or maybe he's learned stuff from Tarantino, I don't know, but like his performance in what was the movie, the British secret agent movie last year,
Kingsman.
He was like a fantastic, like ridiculous villain in that, which seemed out of place in a Tarantino-esque way, like the Nazi with the giant pipe from Inglourious Basterds sort of way. But it was just like the perfect way to play that character.
Yeah, I agree. And I think all his scenes, now that I think about it, I never really thought about this before, but all his scenes in that movie feel very Tarantino-esque. I think the whole dinner scene when he pulls out the McDonald's, the level of tension that's set in that scene, but also the ridiculousness, it does feel very Tarantino.
Yeah.
Matt, had you seen Kingsman?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh,
yet.
you need to see that movie. It's really great.
We'll make it a priority.
All right, so, and this is, I think, a great turning point because I think Tarantino did these two movies where he was like the story of gangsters, and then he followed that up with Jackie Brown, which, while being a similar type of movie, I think is also very different. It's basically his ode to the blaxploitation movies of the 70s, and he obviously did that by bringing back one of the big blaxploitation actresses in Pam Grier and revitalizing her career. Although I don't know if she did a lot after this, but at least brought a lot of attention to her. This is it's a very different kind of movie. What do you guys think about this one? I watched this last night actually, so I have this one very fresh in my mind.
Well, I felt like this one was a lot more grounded than his previous movies. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I felt like it was a little bit more conventional. Am I right in that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very kind of traditional story. I mean, it doesn't use any of his time movement. Well, it does a little actually. There's some parts where he shows things from different angles and then rewinds time and shows a different person's story.
And I don't think any of the characters were too larger than life and ridiculous. I remember Jackie Brown and Max and like being fairly, believable characters.
Yeah, I think Samuel Jackson's character is probably the most Tarantino-esque character in the movie. Yeah. But then it's so funny because this is a movie that has Robert De Niro in it. And his performance in it is very, like, you would think you cast Robert De Niro in a movie, you're going to give him like a big part, and his performance is really muted. He doesn't talk very much. He's very quiet, and he's not really a big key part of the film at all. And it was weird, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his performance a lot here. It's something very different from him. But yeah, he kind of followed up with a very more traditional type of movie, and I think this kind of signaled his start to reach out and explore different genres. And I mean, he's aping the blaxploitation genre here. That's what he's doing, and I think he does a really great job.
Maybe a lot of that was lost on me because that was the whole blaxploitation movies of the 70s were like way before my time. Yeah, and I've never seen any of them, so I don't really know what he was alluding to.
Yeah, I've seen some. Yeah. I mean, it does a good job, but it manages to still kind of feel like a Tarantino movie. There's no really big iconic scene in the movie, I don't think. But Pam Grier as Jackie Brown is just like this presence throughout the entire movie, and it's good. And I'm trying to think of, I'm blanking on the actor who played Max, the bail bondsman. Does anyone remember that guy?
It was Robert Forster.
Oh yeah, and I think he got nominated for an Oscar for this.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, this is definitely Tarantino's most normal movie. If you want to give someone a completely wrong impression of what he's like, then give them this
I
movie.
think that's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really that financially successful. I think it's probably his lowest, except for maybe Reservoir Dogs, of his movies.
Do you guys think that influenced him? Do you think that made him decide that he needed to go back to his, stylistic roots?
I don't think so. I don't know. I suspect he made very much the movie that he wanted to make with that. It didn't seem like, he was trying to be normal.
Yeah, I think he was trying to ape a style, and I think he did it. I think this movie did kind of start the conversation weirdly. There was like he made this movie and then he kind of disappeared. He was like, some people say he was kind of overexposed and that he started doing like appearing in everything. Like he directed random episodes of shows, and there was that one movie, Four Rooms, where he was one of the rooms. But he hadn't made a feature film. Like I think I'm trying to remember when Kill Bill came out. I think it had to have been.
It was while we were in university, right? So
Yeah.
2003.
Yeah. So he took a break for like 6 years before he made anything, and there was all this talk about is Tarantino over because Jackie Brown didn't do that good, and it wasn't as loved by the critics. Although I think critics have kind of come around on it, and a lot of them say it's one of his best works now.
Yeah, well, it is notable. I think he deserves a lot of credit for continuing to be good after Pulp Fiction, because Pulp Fiction received so much attention, and I think it even won the I'm blanking on the name of that French movie award.
The Cannes Film Festival? Yeah, I think it did too.
It won the Palme d'Or, or however the hell you pronounce it, at that. Which is weird. It's a weird movie to win that.
And he won Oscar for screenplay, I think.
Yeah, he won an Oscar, and it just like had so much influence on the industry.
Yeah.
And like after you make that, I feel like it's really hard as a creative person to like, you're like, well, I'm never going to top that. It's clearly impossible to top that. And he managed to.
And I think it's very, I think it would have been really easy for him to stick to that genre because he got so much success in it, and like just become the guy who directs like these gangster movies.
Right.
And he decided really not to. So, I mean, this one, like,
sort of.
He didn't
He kind of does still do that, though, I would say.
I mean, kind of, but I mean, like, it's not like Pulp Fiction has a very American gangstery feel to it, and
yeah, it's
Jackie Brown, even though it's still dealing with a guy. I mean, Sam Jackson's character in this movie is an arms dealer, basically. But the main focus of this movie is Jackie Brown, who's just a 40-something-year-old flight attendant who got tangled up in all this stuff and then ended up being awesome and putting one over on everyone that tried to mess with her. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that he chose to go with this route with this movie was very interesting, and it shows his skill as a director, and that it kind of signs to come of the fact that from here on out, I think he just starts genre jumping. And of course, the next one is Kill Bill, which I think on this podcast is probably going to be the most divisive movie we're going to talk about. Because for those listening out there, I brought Michael on here so we could argue, and so far we're just agreeing on everything, and I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, well, Scott remembers, because we saw this movie together too, I think.
Yeah.
We probably saw a lot of these movies together.
Yeah, I think so.
First time. But yeah, I really hated Kill. I couldn't understand why Kill Bill was so popular when it first came out. And I think I kind of understand it now, but I still don't agree with how amazing people say it was.
So, before I tell you how wrong you are, Matt, what do you think about Kill Bill? You really liked it, I know, but...
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I've spent way too much time with Michael over the years. So a lot of his points have sunk in with me. And I think when I first saw it, it was definitely one of those experiences in the theater where you're kind of aware that you're watching something different, which really get with any Tarantino movie. Frankly, he just puts this whole other sense of the world on the screen for you. But also, as someone who had a samurai sword when they were 18 or 17, the whole like Japanese angle, even though it was sort of a ridiculous, cartoonish, very self-consciously cartoonish portrayal of Japanese culture, that was very fun for me at the time that I saw it. It's not a movie that I almost ever go back and watch again. I think probably what I liked about it was like the ridiculous cartoonish violence, frankly, and then some of the small scenes, like where the assassin is going to kill her in her hospital bed, and then is called off, and I don't know, just certain random things kind of jump to mind.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of what you've said is the reason that I hated it so much, is because it really is, on a lot of levels, incredibly shallow. Like, this is supposed to be cool. The whole movie almost is one giant fight scene in like an anime-ish katana style. And I just felt like there was no depth to it. And in retrospect, I think there is a lot of stylistic depth to it. I mean, he put a lot of thought into the fight scenes, and not just the fight scenes, but like the settings and setting the right tones and everything. But still, like, I don't feel like there's a lot there. I don't think there was too much to focus on.
Yeah, and I think, like, to cap off my criticism, what we talked about just a minute ago, and for all these other movies, is that he's a master of manipulating your emotions. And in this movie, there were definitely a few places where you feel emotions, and you probably feel the ones that he intends you to. But definitely, I think the long sword fight scene, especially on rewatches, is pretty devoid of emotion because it comes off as so cartoonish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I am now. Sorry, Scott.
Okay, so first of all, I think all three of us know that Kill Bill was supposed to be one movie. He was forced to cut it into two because the studios didn't want to release a movie that was 4 hours long. So I don't look at this as two movies. I look at this as one movie, and I think you guys are absolutely correct if you look at the first movie and say it's kind of shallow and there's not much to it. And I think that was very intentional. First of all, the movie's really fun. It's supposed to be really fun. It's aping, Japanese martial arts movies with a Quentin Tarantino twist to it. But the first half of the movie, or Kill Bill Volume 1, is set up very specifically to show a woman who is basically the physical embodiment of revenge. And it doesn't do a lot with her character. It doesn't do a lot with Bill's character. We don't even see Bill in the first half, even though he's the title of the movie. He's not an actual person. She's not an actual person. It's just revenge and the thing they want revenge on. But I think that the great thing that this movie does is, in the second half, it totally turns that. And once she's started to get revenge, then the movie opens up and allows us to learn more about who Beatrix is. And the crazy thing is, allows us to learn more about who Bill is. And by the end of the movie, when she's finally getting to kill Bill, like, you kind of like Bill is what this movie does. Like, he's like talks very well, and he's very charismatic, and like
and she kind of wronged him in a way. Like, she ran away and got married, and he was heartbroken.
Yeah, I mean, he overreacted, which is I think that's a line right from the movie. But yeah, I just think that when you look at these two, like, if this came out as one movie, I mean, I just like, we're talking about manipulating people's emotions, like the fact that it shows the information at this, like, as soon at the moment it's revealed that she has a child that's alive, it stops being just about an avatar of revenge, and it starts being about a person. And it's
the second movie definitely humanizes the characters a lot, and I liked the second movie a lot more. But I don't think you can allow him that that the movies have to be watched together. I mean, the first one came out on his own. At some point, he knew it was going to come out on his own. He needed to make it work as a standalone movie, and I don't think he did.
Well, but I think even like you can treat it as a standalone movie, but you also have to treat it part of a bigger story. And if you want to treat it as a standalone movie, the first half is the revenge story, and the second half is let's explore the characters behind the revenge story. And I mean, when you're writing a script, you write a script for a complete movie, and then you're told later on that your movie has to be cut up. I mean, the story is constructed to work as if this was one movie, and I think it does. I think even on its own, I think people were kind of disappointed by the second one because it was so different from the first half.
I mean, that's the biggest insult to me is how popular the first one was on its own, and then how unpopular the second one was by comparison.
Well, okay, so the average person that sits down and views these movies, the first one is a fun popcorn flick with a lot of violence and a lot of action, and the second is a much more introspective, deep talking movie. So it really doesn't surprise me that the general populace liked the first movie more. I think most critics liked the second movie more, and I think that the popular opinion, if you ask people today, is which. If you have to look at these as two separate movies, which one is better? I think most people will say Volume 2.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think we're just going to be circling around the same points of disagreement. But if it was going to be one movie, I think the whole first part of it was boring without any of the subtext that Volume 2 provides. I think the characters should have been humanized earlier because it would have made that whole fight sequence, at least you care about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I do find that the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest mistake with the first movie is that the bride is not really given any kind of empathy. Like all these horrible things happen to her, but you don't know anything about her. So. Yeah. You're never quite sure how to feel, and maybe that's intentional, but
it's absolutely intentional.
Well, I mean, in that case, the effect that it has is to distance me from the movie, and sure, maybe he meant to do that, but it's like, well, okay, now I'm distanced from the movie, so now what? Like when he kills the first assassin in her kitchen, and then her daughter walks in, you're basically just, I mean, frankly, the first time I saw it, I was just confused about what I was supposed to be feeling, which is not a good place for an audience to be in because, you know, she's like, okay, you just come into this woman's house and you kill her in front of her daughter. Like, obviously, this is the bad guy. I don't frankly remember what order that scene came in. So it's possible he's doing a thing where he's playing with your feelings and making you see her as a villain before he goes on to show that she's actually the one who's been wrong and whatever. But it's like, I'm just confused, and it's absolutely dissimilar from Pulp Fiction, where at no point in Pulp Fiction are you like just confused. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Now I'm learning this information that's putting this thing into context. But you're not like, why is this happening, and what am I supposed to feel?
I just think that's the entire point. I think that's his comment on revenge and how destructive of a force it is. I think the Kill Bill 1 takes time to show you and make you empathize with both of the people that she kills in the movie. Like there's a whole giant backstory of Lucy Liu's character. We get to see what happened to her as a child, what brought her into the violent lifestyle she lives.
There's not a giant backstory. I mean, I think her backstory is told through one flashback, which, if I remember correctly, is animated.
Yeah, right? It's like a 13-minute animated flashback in a
which is just it's adding to the sort of cartoonishness, but I don't think it if you say that the first movie is supposed to make you see like the destructiveness of violence or whatever, I don't think it accomplishes that because I don't care during the whole fight scene. Like, I'm not like, oh, it's terrible that all of these foot soldiers are getting killed. They're all cartoon characters. They're all like foot soldiers from
You're not supposed
from the Ninja Turtles. Like, they're all
well, yeah,
unhuman. Like, there's no consequences of this revenge. It's just fun.
There's absolutely consequences of it. They show the consequence of the fact that she kills the woman's daughter in front of her and tells her
that's not the part of the movie I have a problem with. That was a pretty small part of the movie. The majority of the movie takes place in the Crazy 88 clubhouse or whatever.
I think the last 45 minutes or so. But I think that her fighting the army, you're right, is action and showing off and her killing mindless people. But then when she's actually fighting the woman she's there to kill, it switches from that scene to be a very intimate, personal scene between these two characters, where the one of them, like, you can tell Lucy Liu's character feels guilty about what they did, and like kind of expects it to be coming and accepts her death. Like, it's not like the fight between the two of them is very, very different from the fight with the Crazy 88 army and with the chick with the ball and chain thing, which is very much just aping a certain kind of style, and then it switches into this very intimate fight between two people in almost silence. So, yeah. I mean,
I guess maybe I'm just dumb, but I was even confused about. It's like the movie's throwing mixed signals in that regard, because on the one hand it shows you like, okay, she killed a woman in front of her daughter, and now her daughter's life is ruined basically, and it's like, oh yeah, revenge has terrible consequences, and in fact that's sort of what these people did to her. I mean, okay, so let me hash it out. Bill was basically getting revenge on her for something that she did to him that he felt was wronging him. Now, and in doing so killed like 20 people or whatever, a whole bunch of people in a church. Now she's getting revenge, and she's killing not only these 8 people, but also dozens of random guys. Like, I wanted a scene where one of these random Japanese soldiers was like eating dinner with his family and laughing and patting his son on the head, and then goes to work and gets bisected. Because like, if you're trying to tell a story about how horrible revenge is, it's really weird to have a lengthy sequence where she just butchers a bunch of people and there's no consequences.
Or she's effectively glorifying it.
Yeah, so the movie's trying to glorify it at the same time. Except
maybe that scene at the beginning with her daughter. I don't think she even has any like question in her mind about like the repercussions of what she's doing. She's just like 100% convinced in like her moral superiority.
Did you watch the last movie? Like, I don't see how you're getting that, seeing the final scene of the movie.
We're talking about the first movie.
I just said you can't. It's one story. It's the arc of the character. Like, she goes from in the first movie being this person that's headlong driven into revenge and doesn't care about anything or anyone. Nothing will get in the way to her revenge. Where she's sitting down, just chatting with Bill and crying about the fact that she feels like she has to go through with this revenge now because she's come this far and has to do it.
Poor movie construction. You shouldn't not care about the whole first half until you've seen the final bit and be like, oh, well, maybe she was actually, had some complexity the whole time. Like you have to make yourself care about the stuff that's happening right now, and then you can make yourself care about it on new levels later. But like, I just felt like there was nothing that could be enjoyed except shallow stylistic violence.
Well, that's the point.
Well, I think all of your points are valid, Scott. I think it's more like the feeling of whether this is being conveyed as you're watching the movie versus when you're watching the movies as a whole. Can make it work? And those are two different ways of going about it. And of course, I love doing both things. But I think if a movie isn't working for you as you're sitting there watching it, for whatever reason, it's valid to talk about that. So,
well, I'm not saying that your points aren't valid. I'm just saying that that what you're saying is intentional. I think you're supposed to feel cold to the bride. That's why they don't even give her a name. I think you're not supposed to think of her as a person. I think that's the point.
Well, that's fine, but you then don't care is the problem. You don't have anyone to latch onto, and it's not done in a way like you can kind of say that about something like Pulp Fiction, or I mean, even in Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, you have people that you latch onto, and you realize that they're all flawed. But like in this one,
did you have someone that you latched onto in The Hateful Eight? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Who?
I mean, in some sense, all of them, but like Samuel L. Jackson.
He's a horrible person in that movie. Like, the movie makes time to show you how terrible he is. They're all horrible people.
He's really human, and you understand him.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Is like you can make, man, I'm really drawing a blank on like what character I would choose, but there are so many characters in fiction who are horrible people, but you're still rooting for them because the movie has made you with them through empathy, regardless of whether they're horrible people.
I don't think Kill Bill, the first movie or the first half, wants you to root for her. I don't think it does. I think it takes time to make her not a person. And
it doesn't want you to want her to fail, though.
I mean, you're probably right, but what am I supposed to be feeling then? If like when she's killing all the Japanese soldiers, if I'm not supposed to be empathizing with her and on her side, then I'm genuinely just watching. I connected to the Ninja Turtles.
I think it's playing with. I think revenge is a very relatable feeling for people, and I think the only thing we're defined about the bride is what a guy did bad to her, and I think that's your impetus through the movie is she wants revenge on this guy that did bad to her, but you're watching as she goes about this how many different things she's destroying. And I think at the beginning you're kind of on her side because you're like, yeah, that's fucked up. He did this terrible thing to you. But then as the movie continues on, you're kind of like taken out of that and like, well, geez, this is kind of messed up. You just like killed this woman that's basically just the secretary for Lucy Liu, and like I think she decapitated her. Or I forget what she did, but
she just cut her arm and
because she's just torturing her.
Yeah.
And as the movie goes on,
but it's not done in the way that Tarantino uses to show that something's horrible, right? It's done in the way to show that something is fun because he cuts off.
Sprays blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the moment, but then I think the movie takes the time. Like, there's that, after she finishes that, there's like 88 people on the ground writhing in pain. And she's like, those of you still alive, take what's left of yourself and go. And I think like...
Yeah, and it's directed to be humorous and lighthearted.
Yes and no. I mean, I think... I don't know. I don't understand how you would read this movie not as saying, hey, revenge is kind of fucked up. It's all about a cycle of revenge. Like, he got revenge on her... She got revenge on him. In the process, she pissed off this little girl who she thinks now is going to have revenge on her, and how wrong and screwed up this whole thing is.
I think, yeah.
But it does it in the Quentin Tarantino way where it does have fun with it. I mean, the movie is having fun with it, of course. He likes action. He likes movie violence. I mean, he thinks it's fun, but it's still saying something.
Yeah, but anyway.
I think I might benefit from just watching both movies back to back to kind of maybe get a sense of how you're watching these because I don't think I've ever done that. I think I've watched the first movie a ton of times and then probably watched the second one a much smaller number of times, and I see them as very different. They both feel very different. They both have extremely different tones, actually. And you know, the second movie has like this long, very slow paced conversation between Bill and his brother, and there's nothing like that. I mean, that almost feels more like what you think of when you think of Tarantino, where it's this like two interesting characters interacting. And the first movie doesn't have. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's nothing like that. It does have things like that, but it doesn't feel like that kind of movie.
Right, and I think Bill's brother, who I think his name was Bud, is that right?
Yeah.
really saved the second movie in a lot of ways. He was a really human character. All of his interactions with he kind of humanized the bride a lot too, I think, in his interactions with her. And he also for the first time basically like had the upper hand on her. Like in the first movie, not only do you, and Scott's going to disagree with me about this, but not only do you not care about her, like whether she succeeds because you don't care about her as a character yet, like you also never believe that she's not going to succeed because she's just shown as like an unstoppable badass. But in a really like mundane way, Bud like shoots her through a door with rock salt, and stops her in this movie. And then you feel like she's struggling against something that she might not be successful at.
You're correct. And I think that was intentional. That's the part of her transition from an avatar of revenge into an actual human being.
And I think that's what saved it, and I think it should have been done earlier.
Okay, well we've talked about this for like 20 minutes and we're just going in circles. Everyone's wrong but me. But let's move on because I want to talk about Death Proof. I don't know if we're going to have a lot to say about Death Proof because it's like you said, it's barely a movie. It was originally meant to go as part of this grindhouse like tribute to the horror movies of the 70s, I guess, or the 80s, to be like a two-parter with who was the other person in the grindhouse? I'm blanking now.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, you're right. But I guess he had a cut of this movie that was like a full feature length thing, but they cut it down for the grindhouse version. I've actually never seen the shorter cut. I've only seen the full feature length cut of the movie.
Oh right, I've only seen the shorter one.
And from what I'm told, the feature length one is way better. So, okay. So I think we might have differing opinions on this one just because of that fact. But Matt, what did you think of this movie? You've seen it, right?
Yeah, I think I've seen probably only the short version. I don't even know, and a long time ago, and I really did like it. It's very interesting. It's kind of moves your focus around who you're supposed to be caring about and what you're supposed to be thinking about various characters. And it's interesting now that we're having this conversation, I'm starting to notice how many of his movies end with a cartoonish, like basically revenge fantasy against the character who did bad things. Or, yeah. So I remember really liking it. I haven't watched it again, probably just because I forgot about it and forgot that it was good. Makes me want to watch it again.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you can find it, the feature-length one, because I think it does improve a lot of the problems the movie has, which it kind of moves really fast and doesn't allow things to set things up very well. And but I think it's a fun movie. I mean, I think that slow motion of that car crash, with the ultra-violent car crash where people's limbs are flying off, I think that's probably one of the better filmed car crash sequences I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that, honestly.
I have no idea. But, I mean, I would say I don't think it's probably my least favorite Tarantino movie. But I think that's, like, it's still really good, and I think it's still fun. I think it's harmless. Like, I think it's him, once again, exploring a kind of a horror, thriller, exploitation genre thing with muscle cars, and I mean, I don't know, Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I see it as like a fun short story. I mean, I only saw the short version, but I thought it was pretty, focused as a short story, and I don't think he ever intended it to be like an epic. Like, I'm going to put loads of meaning and connection in every shot. It was just like, this is the idea for a story I have, and I'm going to film it. And I think it was successful in that, right?
I actually wonder, when he says Hateful Eight is his 8th movie, part of me wonders if they're counting Kill Bill 1 and 2, and they're just not counting this movie, which it could be.
Yeah, I wouldn't. But then I didn't know there was a whole feature-length version, actually, until you told me. But I wouldn't have counted this as one of his movies.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if there's much else to say about that, except it's once again he makes 2 movies, and then a third movie is a big departure from those, and then he kind of resets. And then so moving on to the next movie, which is Inglourious Bastards, which I love, and until I saw Django, Bastards was my favorite movie.
Really?
And then until I saw Hateful Eight, Django was my favorite movie. So from here on out, to me, they just keep getting better.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think of Inglourious Bastards? Was it surprising to you? Like Quentin Tarantino is a guy who loves to throw pop culture references in his films, and then in the last 3 movies, starting with this one, has decided to go back in time where he can't do that kind of thing really.
I thought there were certain things in Inglourious Bastards that I appreciated a lot, and one was the opening scene where he manages to both he creates this larger than life Nazi character, which is of course Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
And as you said, he's one of the only people who knows how to use Christoph Waltz, but his character was the triumph of this movie for me. And the fact that he chose to give him a comically large pipe was just a great stylistic choice, and it made the scene a lot less heavy, but it still succeeded in being a really heavy scene because you realize that the person's hiding, Jewish people in the basement, and you actually care about that. And this is in contrast to the bits of Kill Bill that we've been arguing about for me, where I felt like he used sort of cartoonishness to help his point rather than, dull the point.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get an argument out of me that this is a better movie than Kill Bill. I absolutely agree with you. And I think this to me is a signal of him taking all the skills that he's learned over the past 6 or whatever movie and really starting to hone them.
Yeah, well,
that
I will
scene
say,
in particular.
I as much as I liked that scene, and I liked a lot of the movie, I felt like it did a good job building tension. And this movie actually is a lot different from a lot of his previous ones in that there is a clear hero almost, or like a group of heroes.
Yeah.
There's definitely like Brad Pitt and his protagonists. But the thing that for me that kind of shook me was the whole ending of this movie, which felt, I know, Matt was talking about the reasons that he thought the ending was successful earlier. But it didn't really flow for me. Like it felt really disconnected from the previous bits in the movie. And I didn't really feel like it was like a triumph. It was just like, where's this coming from? And it's not pulling together the movie for me.
Oh man, I just don't agree at all.
Yeah.
I think especially the fact that it was in a theater, I think was very, very clear and pulling together, Quentin Tarantino's love of film and his, like, this movie I think was him. And I think it started this trend of him where he was just like sat down one day and say, wouldn't it be cool if a Jewish American soldier got to blow Hitler's head off and burn most of the Nazi leadership inside a movie theater?
What I think it was is just that they kind of tell you what they want to do at the beginning of the movie, and then they go through some kind of struggles to do it, which is successful, and then at the end they just do it. And there was never really a twist in expectation anywhere, I think is probably why I felt disappointed.
Well, I guess I was surprised because you never think they're going to end a World War II movie by blowing up Hitler.
Right.
Right. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Like, I think... sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, I think that this movie actually, to me, has a lot familiar with, or and similar with Pulp Fiction, where I look at it as a series of kind of mini acts that tie together into a movie, because like they're just, this movie just has like a few long scenes, right? It has the beginning scene, and then it has the whole scene with Brad Pitt's character, and you meet the bastards, and then it has the the whole scene at the bar.
The bar scene, which was really good.
Yeah, which was really great, and then it has the conclusion at the theater. So to me, although it all moves in an order, and doesn't really cut around very much time wise, I think it's a connected acts to me, and I think they're all really great. And I think I think he was at a point where he wanted to show this story of, and he knew that, exactly as Matt said, that doing a movie about someone getting to kill Hitler would be very unexpected. But I mean, I don't know. I think you're talking about how you didn't ever feel like they weren't going to be able to pull off their plan. I don't know. I felt like things just kept going wrong and kept getting worse, and somehow, despite it all, they pulled it off.
I mean, I feel like the normal way of doing this movie or a movie kind of like this, if it were some other director who kind of had a similar idea, would be like, you show the plan almost work, and then all the allies are caught and they're all shot, and that's the end of the movie. Like, because we honestly, we have so many movies about World War II that are just relentlessly depressing. Like,
right.
that's always intentional, because they're always like, World War II was relentlessly horrible, and
right.
everyone did die, and there's no point in pretending they didn't. And I guess Tarantino is saying, like, okay, well, we've seen that story. Let's actually just kind of zig instead of zagging, and have our revenge fantasy, and then kind of, I don't know, I may be reaching here, but the twist is almost like, and then one of the worst Nazis gets a pardon, because he has a role in turning over Hitler.
Right.
Basically.
I think that's really smart too, because the movie doesn't really end triumphantly. Like, everyone thinks it does, because the most powerful image to everyone is Hitler's face being melted by machine gun fire. But yeah, there's that whole part after that where you're right. One of the worst guys who they've taken the entire movie to show just how terrible he is, gets off. And
I think, to take another stab at why I didn't think that the triumph of the movie really came together, they don't actually set up Hitler as like the villain of this movie. It's Christoph Waltz's character, right?
Yeah.
They show you how terrible he is. Hitler is not characterized, but they're relying on the fact that Hitler is intrinsically characterized by the world, as everyone knows he's real evil.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it wasn't satisfying for me. Like, it didn't seem like a climax when they kill all the Nazis in the theater, because they're not the ones who are set up to be the person they're trying to triumph over.
Yeah, I think there's something complicated happening there, because it's the whole idea of, like, the audience is laughing at Americans being killed on the screen, while in the actual movie theater the Americans are laughing at the Nazis being killed on the screen, and
absolutely,
and you're not actually like you're supposed to feel weird about it, because you're not actually supposed to enjoy all the Nazis being killed in the movie theater, because you're kind of supposed to identify with them.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to enjoy it and then immediately feel bad about the fact that you've enjoyed it. I think that, I don't know if you remember when American Sniper came out last year, and I think it was Seth Rogen who compared American Sniper to that movie within a movie in Inglourious Basterds, and people flipped out about it. And I thought that was hilarious, because that's kind of exactly what it is. It's our guy is the good guy and the enemy is the bad guy, and we're going to revel in our good guy killing all the bad guys.
But Michael, I agree that you don't really feel anything when they kill Hitler, because that's not really the climax, because you don't care about.
Right.
I mean, if like, that's more like, we've accomplished the mission. Like
right.
it could have been a heist movie, and it was like, okay, we did the heist. Now we have to resolve all the character conflicts, which is really what you're watching the movie for.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think every feeling you get for Hitler's face being blown off is tied to your external feelings of who Hitler is, and nothing really within the world of the movie.
Yeah,
so
well, and also the thing is, like like, I don't know, I can't clearly express this, but like, everyone knows Hitler didn't die that way. Everyone knows that the reality was so much more horrible. So this is really just our, like, completely self-conscious revenge fantasy, and like, it like, maybe it feels good to watch Hitler get shot in the face, but it's like, but it's completely hollow.
Yeah,
you know?
and that, really just on a personal note is why I don't appreciate this era of Tarantino as much as the others. Is the revenge fantasy doesn't resonate with me very much, and that was one of the reasons that Kill Bill wasn't very impactful with me, and Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained actually. But that's just kind of a personal preference in movies, I guess. But
Yeah,
but he,
I mean,
that idea does really define this era of Tarantino, I think, is worth pointing.
it does, and I think the fact that he chose to set it all in a theater, I think very
Yeah.
specifically is him speaking to the power of film. Like,
Yeah.
look what we can do with movies. We can in this movie world, which I think he probably likes better than the real world. We can say that we killed Hitler. We can say that a black slave got freed and had revenge on the people that destroyed his life and almost killed his wife.
Yeah.
And it's very, and I think it kind of fits because if you look at the time frame, this was post 9/11, and we're in this increasingly dark and less hopeful world, where he's kind of like, man, it kind of sucks. What if we could do this instead of this? And I think that's definitely probably what he was going through. So I guess let's move then to Django, because I think Django is another iteration of that, and I think a better well done. I really think until I saw Hateful Eight, I really thought Django was his masterpiece, because I think it uses every technique that he's learned over the time to craft this epic story of this guy. And I know you don't like it as much, Michael. And we've had talks about it before that I'm sure we're going to rehash now, but I just love this movie. I love it so much. I love the actors. I love the story. I love how everything plays out. I love how smartly he does things.
So yeah, why don't we start with you telling us like what it is about this movie that you thought was real successful and made you like it?
I mean, I think I think first of all, these characters are great. I think that using Christoph Waltz in a way that he did, coming from Inglourious Bastards, where he just defined this guy as this sweet talking villain, and to completely flip that and make him like a sweet talking good guy, was brilliant. And I think it shows both the power of his acting and Tarantino's writing. Like we said, that no one else can use this guy the way he does. And then I think Django, the transformation that Django goes over the course of this movie, I think is some of his best character work. He starts as this slave that doesn't really know anything, has been beaten down by the system, and slowly with the aid of Waltz, but also kind of on his own, learns how to operate in this world and how to be successful. Like he learns about the world in which white people are in charge, and he's intrinsically looked down on as less valued, less than them, and he uses that to manipulate people. Like, a lot of people look at this movie as some of the criticisms against it were he needs this white guy in Christoph Waltz to help him be successful, and to be the one that props Django up to his level of hero. But I don't think that's a correct interpretation. I think Django in the end is smarter than Waltz's character. And better knows how to live in the world. And I mean, like, Waltz's character is the one that almost screws everything up, and over just some inability to control his emotion. So I just think everything just comes together perfectly for me. And the violent end, like we were talking about, is perfectly shown to be kind of cartoony and silly. You're kind of supposed to take joy in what he's doing, because like you've said, they've taken time to show just how terrible these characters were, the bad guys were. But I think, and I know I've been talking for a while, so I'll wrap this up, but I think Samuel L. Jackson's character of Steven, being kind of the worst villain between him and Candy, was just incredibly brilliant. And how that information is doled out to you is great. And that like a lot of people said it wasn't fair that Django wasn't the one that got to kill Candy, because he was just awful to him. But the real villain for Django was Steven, and he's the one that he got to take out. So I don't know. I think it just all came together just perfectly. Matt.
Yeah, this is another movie where I think I had to have it explained to me via YouTube because I'm not that smart. But like what you just said about Django actually being the one who was ultimately smarter than Christoph Waltz and knew how to navigate the world better. Like there were certain things I didn't get when I was watching the movie, or certain, like when at one point Christoph Waltz is saying to Django, like, stop antagonizing Candy, you're gonna mess this up, and Django says, I'm not antagonizing him, I'm intriguing him.
Yeah.
I may be messing up the exact quote, but I, like, at the time I was like, I don't get it. And after watching this thing that kind of explained to me like the dynamics of the culture at that time, it was like, wow, that's really interesting, because obviously the actual case is that Django understands Candy's psychology much better and kind of understands Candy's blind spots, and he's basically making himself appear to be this thing that Candy wants to know more about. And it went over my head when I was watching the movie, frankly, because I wasn't sufficiently educated about it. But after I knew about it, I liked it even more. But overall, I really love this movie. Also, it's not one that I actually think I've rewatched more than once because
you need to.
It's too heavy for me, almost like because I mean, most of his violence in his other movies, the vast majority is play violence, and it's entertaining. But so much of the violence in this movie is extremely uncomfortable, realistic violence that yes, for our cultural education, we need to watch, but it doesn't give you the same feelings of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. So, Michael, why don't you go for it? I know you've been holding your breath.
To be completely candid here, I've been like desperately reading the Wikipedia article because I realized I was confusing a lot of facts with 12 Years a Slave. Benedict Cumberbatch's character, and I'm like, so I don't know if I'm really I don't think I really deserve to say anything about this movie since I clearly don't remember it very well.
So I win. It wins.
I think I mean, for me, and I won't even try to explain it because the beginning of the movie is what I'm confusing with other movies, but I think I felt my overarching idea is I think I felt like the ending was not a satisfying conclusion to a movie that had a lot of realistic violence at the beginning, and then at the end it's like, oh, what are we trying to say about this? What is our message here? And then it's just turns it into like the revenge fantasy of well, it will feel good because he gets the super violent revenge on the bad guy, and then the movie ends. And I think that was the unsatisfying conclusion for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it as if you look at Django as if he's a superhero, I think that's his moment, I guess, that he gets that, and it's very intentional that he always does it by kind of outsmarting people. I mean, the fact that he's even able to blow up the house at the end of the movie is due to the fact that he completely, once again, manipulated the white people into underestimating him because they naturally assume that he's dumber than he is. And I love all that. And I love Waltz's character too. What is his? I'm blanking on his name. Was it Schultz?
Too. Schultz, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I love his character, and I love that he goes from the one that's kind of guiding Django to the one that eventually just loses control and can't keep his emotions in check, and almost screws everything up just because his pride over Candy.
Yeah, that was a good scene, I think, Schultz's death.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my only main criticism with this film is that I thought it was setting. It had a lot of. It really had me until some point at the end where I felt like he just didn't didn't know how to end it, and then just like had him kind of cartoonishly win. And that was probably almost definitely on purpose.
Yeah.
His to go that direction, but it wasn't dissatisfying to me, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think that the thing that I remind myself, especially when like you leave that scene and it's the good guy winning over the bad guys, and it's triumphant in that fact, but it's also really violent. And I think Quentin Tarantino understands violence very well, and he understands the power of it. And he knows that violence is intrinsically fun to our culture, and he can use that to manipulate us. And
sort of, but I'll contrast it to The Hateful Eight, which I think has a perfect ending. And the violence at the end of that movie, it doesn't end on a silly, violent note. It has silly violence in the middle, but the act at the end is not silly violence, and it brings the movie together.
Yeah, but I think that's a very different movie than this is.
It's a very different movie, but it's just an example of I felt like this was like in Django Unchained. It's like the bare minimum that he needs to win and be triumphant over the bad guys. But like, what is the point? What is the ending leaving me thinking about? And I don't know if there was very much that it was leaving me thinking about in the end of Django Unchained, except that, well, the bad guys got what they deserved.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more of a fantasy movie, so I don't think you're supposed to leave Django pondering, I think you're it's very much supposed to draw attention to just how terrible of a system slavery was, but at least leaves you with a positive note of, hey, look, this guy found a way to live in that world and come out successful. But then I think he takes that, and I think it's so funny to compare these two movies. And I'm sorry, unfortunately we can't go into Hateful Eight in too much detail, but Hateful Eight, like I said earlier, is almost a movie that punishes you for thinking that Django solved all the problems. Like, Django's a movie that, wouldn't it be cool if the black people that were slaves got to do this, and that would solve everything.
Well, but it wouldn't.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's what I think Hateful Eight is saying. It's saying that, it taking place in Reconstruction time, showing how terrible and mixed. I mean, by having a former Confederate guy who super racist guy be elected sheriff, I mean, is absolutely intentionally drawing a parallel to what's going on in our world today. And I think it's just, man, I wish I could talk about Hateful Eight.
I mean, we're going to talk about it after Matt leaves. Because I want to discuss some bits of the ending with you too.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's
insert musical interlude here.
So yeah, let's wrap this up. I mean, I think I got to have my argument with Michael over Kill Bill, which is great because I think listening to people argue is pretty fascinating. But so I hope you people enjoy when we went around in circles for 20 minutes yelling about.
Yeah, I hope we made enough unique points that it was actually interesting. So.
I hope so too. I think all of us agree that Quentin Tarantino is a great director, and he's one of those directors where every time he finishes a movie, he talks about how, I just don't want to be one of those directors that fades into obscurity as they get older, that keeps making worse and worse movies as I get older. So I really want to go out on a big one. So I'm always afraid after he finishes a movie that he's going to be like, this is it.
He's said that he's going to make some fixed number of movies and then stop and do something else.
Yeah.
So,
which
like
is
10 or something, or 12 or something.
Yeah, which is terrifying to me because as long as he's still making movies is good, I want him to keep making movies.
The thing I appreciate most about him is just that he doesn't have a pre-confined concept of like what a movie should be.
Yeah.
Like he's not afraid to just kind of do whatever, and the things he does usually works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And when he stops making movies, he's probably going to go and write books or write plays or something, and those are going to be his things, and we're going to love those too.
Yeah. So let's close this part of the podcast. We're not going anywhere. Michael and I have to talk Hateful Eight, but let's close. What genre? If he's got, let's say he's got 2 more movies in him, what genre of film would you like him to tackle? Matt, you go first.
Well, the first thing that pops in my head is sci-fi, because I love sci-fi. I want everything to be sci-fi all the time. Um, and also that's something he hasn't tackled, but he may just have no interest in that because he seems much more interested in the human side of things, and he's he delved into these sort of violent subcultures. He delved into our violent past. I don't really see him doing the future because the future is more where there's just a whole different palette of things to say, and I don't know if those are the things he's interested in. I'd have to think pretty hard to think of like, well, what is he probably going to do next, just based on kind of what I know about him. There's probably an answer to that, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think sci-fi is a good answer because I think he used the past to talk about our current situation in Hateful Eight. I think he could be equally as skilled as using some nebulous future to comment on the state of us right now.
I wouldn't put it past him either because I wouldn't have thought he would have used anime as an influence before he did Kill Bill.
Yeah.
But he obviously found things to appreciate there. So I wouldn't be surprised. And I think if it is a futuristic movie, it's going to be like a future Western.
Yeah.
In a sort of Firefly way, because he loves Westerns. Like that, a lot of his movies that aren't Westerns are Westerns.
Yeah. And I think he said specifically that to be a Western director, you have to make 3. So I think he probably wants to do one more.
Oh.
Michael, what's your answer?
Oh, I think it's the same. For the reasons I said, it's a new direction for him to go, and I think it's going to still feel like a Tarantino movie because it's going to include hateful people. It's going to have kind of a Western feel, and that would be an awesome thing to bring to sci-fi, I think, because like the sci-fi kind of has fallen into sort of cold, like intellectual exploration of like what the future could be in generally dystopian ways. And if he does it, he's going to make it really human. It's going to be dirty. It's not going to be like this is a robot world. It's going to be like still human with like some sort of sci-fi twist to it.
Yeah. It's a good answer. I think I want to see him do like a straight up horror film. I think that'd be very interesting. I think he's talked about it before, but I mean, I think Death Proof is kind of the closest to a horror, but it's more of thriller than straight up horror. But I think it'd be very interesting to see him tackle that genre. I have no idea what it would look like, what it would be. I know, he'll throw his normal style into it, but I think that'd be fun. So maybe his last 2 movies will be a horror and a space western, and we'll all be happy.
Yeah,
maybe.
Hope so.
All right, so that's it for the new movie spoiler part of the podcast. If you haven't seen Kill Bill, Hateful Eight, I would not listen to this part from now on because we're gonna spoil the heck out of this movie. Matt, you can listen if you want, but I don't know if you want to spoil it for you.
I don't. I'm gonna sign off.
Okay.
Go to sleep.
All right, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
See you, Matt.
Later, guys. Bye.
Later. Is he,
all right.
Is he gone?
Are we alone? Can we?
Yeah, he's gone.
Talk about it? Okay.
Okay. So spoilers for Hateful Eight. Start right now. Go.
I want to jump right to the ending because I really want to talk about it. And so the ending, of course, is the only people left in the cabin are Samuel Jackson's character, Goggins' character, and Jennifer Jason. For some reason, I can't ever remember their names.
Daisy Domergue.
Daisy Domergue, and they decide to hang her, which is great because it brings together the whole bit at the beginning where she's being kept alive to go hang. But here's the thing I want to talk about first. Okay, the letter that
the
Samuel Jackson, the letter that Samuel Jackson has from Abe Lincoln, or maybe he made it up. Did he make it up or not? Because first you think it's real. Goggins' character calls him out on it. It's like there's no way that could be real. But out of kind of spite at that point, I feel like Samuel Jackson might be lying. Like, oh, you can't believe this is true? Well, fine. It's not for you. The letter was for me. I'm just going to say it's a lie. But and then I believed him. But then at the ending, when Goggins is reading the letter, he's mouthing it as it's being read out loud because he's memorized it.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me implies that it was really important to him and it was from Abe Lincoln. How did you interpret that?
See, I definitely think it's fake.
Okay.
To me, the letter symbolizes Sam Jackson's character recognizing that he needs some way of surviving in a world in which white people hate him and want to kill him.
Sure.
So he constructs this false thing because he knows even Confederate people love Lincoln because everybody respected Lincoln. So it's this false constructed artifice that lets him, because I think there's a quote somewhere in there that says something to the effect of when white people are in charge, black people feel safe or something. So it's this way of constructing a way to humanize himself and make white people disarm them.
Right. He says it saved him in that carriage.
Right.
But the fact that he's mouthing at the end, I think, is supposed to make it a little bit ambiguous. Like, why is it so important to him that he's memorized it and is repeating it to himself?
Yeah.
If it's just something he made up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe it could be real, but I think the fact that just the fact that it exists and he has to use it is, to me, like a powerful commentary on how a lot of white people in present day America, like, I think I read this great article that said that basically Django Unchained is the Lincoln letter. It is this false artifice that makes white people feel good about something, but it's fake. It's not real. It's almost, I think he almost realizes, especially as all this police stuff was happening and all the uprising that's happened over the last few years, I think he almost maybe realized that Django was hurtful because it kind of any movie that kind of allows people to like wash their hands of something and say like, oh, that was back then, and look, this is a guy getting revenge and learning how to live in the system. I think this movie is almost a result of that, and I think that's especially true if you listen to him talk about how this was almost supposed to be like a spiritual sequel to Django, and then he realized that like Django was too uplifting of a character to be put into this situation, so it had to change. And I think that's him like reacting to the things that have been going on. So I mean, whether or not it's real or not, I think that interpretation still holds up. So you might be correct in that there is maybe some truth behind it.
I just really like the idea, and I think it's great as a lie for all the reasons you said.
Yeah,
but it goes from being true to a lie that has meaning, and then maybe to true at the end, but you don't know. I mean, just the mouthing was just like really interesting to me. But another thing where he may or may not be telling the truth, which I felt was a little bit ambiguous, but maybe it wasn't, is when he was telling the old Confederate general how he killed his son. Yeah. Because it was really clear there that he was just provoking him into drawing the gun so he could kill him. Yeah.
I think he definitely killed his son. I think the story was completely made up.
Yeah, I think so too. And it was great when it was done too, because it was right after the scene at the supper table where he gets called out on the letter, and Goggins is like, there's no way that a white president would ever talk to a black, war person because he's black for no other reason. And that pisses him off and makes him mad at white people in general, but mostly the Confederate guy because he didn't treat his black prisoners of war well.
Right.
He's like, this is the guy I'm going to kill. And it also made the hangman kind of lose respect for him as well. And he had felt like he had kind of a friend there. So he's just kind of pissed off, and he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kill this terrible racist, Confederate general. Yeah. And I think he made up a lot of that story.
And I think, speaking of the Confederate general, I think he's a great character too, because I think if we look at Minnie's haberdashery as a surrogate for modern America, he's he's the person that is okay with all the violence because he's just standing by and enjoying the benefits of being a white person in this world.
Yeah.
And that's why he doesn't talk very much, is very passive. And
well, also because you realize he's kind of a prisoner.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Which was great.
What did you think about that? A lot of people didn't like the flashback to show how they took over the haberdashery. I really liked it.
I thought it was good. I did think it was good. I will say that one of my comments when I was discussing the movie with who I saw it with over here when I left is that even though it was a long movie, I was super engaged the whole time.
Yeah.
Except for one scene, which is right when they started the flashback, which was about a 3-minute sequence of the flashback people's carriage, like going through snowy woods and then coming up to the cabin. And I think and that was a point where I was like, I'm a little bored right now. I realized that I'm in a movie, but it happened right after a really important scene.
Right. So sometimes it's like the effect of like when you're reading a book and they cut away from someone's perspective
it's
right in the middle,
calming you down and giving you time to think about it without other stuff distracting you.
Right.
I think it was done on purpose, but besides that, like the whole movie, I was super engaged.
And it's so like this. I mean, I said it about Django, but this is his masterpiece to me because this uses every tool he has in his tool belt to manipulate the audience, to tell a deep, impactful story, to create great characters, to have great dialogue.
Yeah,
it's all of it coming together.
It really is a perfection of all of his previous movies. It's really relatable to Reservoir Dogs because it's about a group of people kind of locked in one place. It uses some nonlinear elements of Pulp Fiction, like when he does the flashback with how the people got into the cabin to begin with. Mm-hmm. It's got the stylistic violence of Kill Bill. It's got it's got a lot of the sort of revenge elements of Django Unchained. And it's kind of all of those things, but really well defined.
So the end with the two of them hanging Daisy.
That was great.
So to me, and let me know what you interpret it. To me, this is a super pessimistic movie. This is a super nihilistic movie. I think basically, to me, what Tarantino was saying here is we're kind of fucked. Like to me, like the sins of our past are still very much present in our lives, and the fact that the only way the white guy and the black guy could get along was by relishing in the pain and death of the female character, the only female character really in the movie, was very deliberate. And it's like look, this like violence begets more violence, even if it's not violence against each other. It's gonna be bonding over violence of other people, and it's kind of like we're fucked.
I love that that's your interpretation. It wasn't my interpretation, but I think his thing with the ending was just like it's a complex situation. But my interpretation of the ending was a little hopeful actually, because it was these two characters who brought up to hate each other, but they were sort of united in what they considered a noble effort and like a sort of a tribute to their friend who was never really their friend. But it was like even after they accomplished the hanging, they still kind of respected each other at that point.
Yeah, and I get that interpretation. I just think it's respect gained by more violence, right? And
it was, yeah, and
so
that's
like,
and I get and think it's cool your interpretation of like it's only violence that's uniting these people. But I thought it was a lot more hopeful, and I thought it was like the whole thing leading up to that was great because you think Goggins might be swayed to betray Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Well, yeah, everything you know about him up until that point tells you there's no way he's going to side with the black guy. Right.
And he does, which is strangely touching. And a triumph, you're like, yes, like you and Samuel L. Jackson are both like, yes. And you want that to happen, and in a way that makes the movie come together.
Yeah.
Because he is set up as like this, but he's a really human character, I think. And this is where, you were saying that there was no character that you thought you could really root for in this movie. And he was kind of one of them, especially at the end, even though, he reminded me of a lot of people I knew. And you knew, like some of the people who lived across from us on the dorm.
Oh God!
In the way that they're brought up to think to be racist. He was brought up to hate black people, but he wasn't like immoral. It was just the way that the world had been presented to him by his father. Like he obviously they showed how much respect he had for the Confederate general and what he believed to be like the noble Confederate cause. Because he was becoming a sheriff. It was implied that maybe he wanted to do some good in the world, and he was kind of indignant at the fact that no one believed that he could be. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
Like it didn't tell us that he was doing this to like scam anyone, and I don't think he was. I think he really wanted to like do something with his life, like to make his own name. He wasn't ashamed of his father, but he like wanted to do something on his own, and no one believed him. And I think that was a relatable feature of him.
Yeah. I understand that. It's just really hard for me to root for
for
super
a
racist guy.
But in the movie, besides all of his derogatory comments towards Samuel Jackson, I don't think he ever does anything evil, does he?
I think you're right. I mean, this is a movie that I really want to see again, and I haven't gotten to see again. Yeah. But I think you're right. I think every other character does specific acts of violence against people, whereas he is just kind of there. And he says truly awful things, for sure. But yeah, actually actions, I don't think so.
Yeah, and so I thought it was important at the end how he kind of begins to respect Samuel Jackson's character and even considers him a friend because they do this hanging together. He doesn't betray him when he's being asked to betray him and could potentially get some gain out of it. So that makes you like him a lot.
So it just goes to show you that the only thing that racist assholes hate more than black people is women.
Yeah, I'm not that pessimistic about it. I don't think the fact that she is a woman was really that. No, not attention wasn't really drawn to that during the movie.
I think so. I mean, I think the movie plays with your expectation that you see this woman who's a prisoner of I forget his name. I forget the character's name.
The hangman.
Yeah, there you go. John Ruth, the hangman.
Yeah.
It does that, and you see him beat the shit out of her, like the first scene they're in together, and you're like, whoa, this guy's an asshole. You feel sorry for this girl. And then the very next thing is like she spits out the blood and says some truly horrible things. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, she's awful too. And then I think it with the Lincoln letter, when she spits on it, like that's the moment you're like, hey, whoa, this is not cool.
That bitch, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it plays with your understanding of and your natural reactions toward a female character, and I think the fact that she is a woman is very important to the overall story. And it's when I get upset when I see people calling this movie misogynistic because of the treatment of her character in it.
Yeah, I mean that clearly wasn't like the point.
No, not at all.
But it was. I mean, in a lot of ways, I thought it was very non-misogynistic, just because she was more a human than a female.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't like someone who needed to be like taken care of and stuff. She was a pretty strong character, really.
Yeah.
And she was just a person, and it turned out to be a pretty evil person. Like terrifying, wicked person, but it was good. I don't think the fact that she was a female and got hit was significant.
Well, I do, but that's fine. Yeah.
Well, it was significant in making you feel empathy, making you hate John Ruth, because it's established in our society that hitting women is bad. But besides that, I don't think it was like. It was supposed to be like women deserve to be hit and are intrinsically evil. I don't think that was the point at all.
No. That's not what he was trying to say at all. I think this movie, and we mentioned already, but I want to really drive the point home more than anything, is Tarantino's mastery of manipulating the audience. Because I think I wrote this in my review that every time he makes you want to kind of like a character. He always has them do something bad almost immediately after that, and it just messes with you, and you don't know really who to root for, and you don't know whose side to be on. I think that helps make it, you understand like what's going on as far as
it does,
who's doing what, and what's the mystery behind all this stuff, and it sets tone really well.
Yeah, it humanizes everyone in the Tarantino way, because I said, I felt like you could emphasize and root for Samuel Jackson and Goggins at the end, but it didn't set them up as like, you know, morally righteous heroes. They were like imperfect humans with a lot of flaws.
Yeah. Great movie. What do you think about the fact that it's not doing that well financially?
Is it not?
Not really, no.
I don't know. I think it's too bad. I think part of it might be it's living in the shadow of Star Wars. It was probably unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that it's Django made a lot of money, Inglourious Basterds made a lot of money, because those I think are inherently movies that a broader audience can get enjoyment out of. This is a hard movie to watch. It's a complicated movie. It's one that you have to think about. This movie, like, I swear, I left it and I was like, that was okay. And then the more and more I thought about it, the more I liked it. And
really?
it's just one of those movies that has grown on me so much. Like if I were to redo my top 10 films of the year list right now,
it's the number one.
It would probably be the number one. It's
cool.
Just so well done.
I agree with you that it grows on you. I mean, I loved it as soon as I walked out of it. I was like, yes, that has completely renewed my faith in Tarantino. Not that I ever had dismissed him as, you know, not understanding films anymore, but I just felt like none of his previous movies, like I mentioned, really came together in this sort of like, that was a really tight movie where everything comes together and means something, like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, with the perfect ending. Like, I think the ending was something I felt was missing from a lot of the other movies, but this one, I just felt like everything came together, and I was like, this is why I like Tarantino.
Well, and I think it shows a level of maturity from him. I mean, he's always like, he loves violence, he thinks it's fun, he loves these kind of fun movies, and he's always going to have that to a certain extent, but I think more than ever, he's recognizing the power that film has to impact people and make people think about things that they really haven't. And this is that coming to a head. Like, this is a movie much more interested in kind of exploring what is the root of the problem with the country right now.
And he's never preachy about it, and you don't even know he's talking about it. Really.
Right. And honestly, I think a lot of people, it might have gone right over their heads, you know? So, but great movie. And God, all these performances. I am like, I'm upset about the Oscars like being really white again. But Sam Jackson's performance in this movie was incredible. Like,
yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I was really surprised it wasn't nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, me too.
As well, because I thought it was one of the better pictures.
Did he even get director? I'm trying to remember. I think he might have been nominated for director.
Yeah, I don't know, but it wasn't featured in any of the prominent categories that I thought it should have been. And yeah, you're right. Samuel Jackson should have been nominated.
I mean, maybe not win, but at least give him it. Like, that character was great. That's like, to me, that's not only is this movie the culmination of Tarantino's career, but I think this was some of the best Samuel Jackson. Like, this character is so complicated,
right?
And he plays him so well.
It reminded me that I like Samuel L. Jackson, this and The Kingsman, because in he kind of had a reputation in the middle there after Pulp Fiction of doing like bad action movies and being kind of like a bad action star,
right?
And like even his appearances in Star Wars were very boring and straight. And he was just like one of the few like black actors who you could use to be a badass, and that's not what he's really good at, actually. Yeah. Even though he
plays that really well, but he can do so much more than that.
Yeah, he can play that well, but he does better when there's like something behind it. Like in Pulp Fiction, he's a badass kind of, but he's also like this wannabe intellectual that gives him layers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and like the Kingsman in this, it's just like, oh yeah, Samuel Jackson's actually like a really self-aware, good actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have been and I was disappointed by some of the Oscar. I haven't seen about half of the Oscar nominated movies, but
I've seen all of them except for Brooklyn is the only one I haven't seen.
Yeah.
You haven't seen The Revenant, right?
No, I'm seeing it tomorrow or the next day because it just came out like on Friday.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, you told me you thought it was boring. I suspect I'll agree with you.
Yeah, let me know.
It didn't really the trailer didn't really make me excited about it like it seemed to everyone else. But I actually liked Birdman.
Oh, did you listen to our other podcast yet?
No, I saw that you put that up, and I was like, oh, I want to get in on this Birdman. Because I thought Birdman was just really, really interestingly done from a filmmaking perspective. It was a movie that wasn't afraid to like not make a standard movie, and a lot of the things it did I thought were really effective. But
maybe we'll have to have a Birdman 2.0 discussion.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, I think that wraps everything up. We've been talking for like 2 hours now, so it's a good time to call an end to it. This was a really great discussion. I'm glad we got to get together and talk about Tarantino. I'm glad we agreed more than we disagreed. It's fun to argue. It's good to see that you saw the same things I saw in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot to appreciate about Tarantino, and the only things really that we differed on where we thought that the things he was trying to do succeeded and where we thought that they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's you can always appreciate what he's trying to do and the way that he tries to do them. Yep,
for sure. So we will put all our contact information and stuff in the show notes. But you can find all of our writing and all of our other podcasts at www.dalyplanetfilms.com. And I don't know what we have planned for next week because it's a long time away because this is Sunday and this thing's not going out till probably Friday. But we will see y'all next week.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to thank you. I guess I should have done that. Well, I haven't stopped hitting record yet. So
yeah.
Thanks for coming, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me.
It was
Scott.
A great conversation. I look forward to when we can have these conversations not at 6:00 in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and move back to the United States
soon?
It's great here. We have movies that show how we're all terrible to each other.
Yeah. It's funny how about half of the movies come out like 1 or 2 weeks before in the UK, and about half of them come out about 2 months later.
It's weird. All right, man. We'll have a good one. And we'll see you all next week. This is the real goodbye of the podcast now.